Elys Network is all things DeFi. So for us, we are essentially taking the very best things that you can get from, like, let's say, a centralized exchange experience, but giving you the decentralized experience to go with it. So you get the full self-custody.
Yo, GM. Today we're honored to sit down with someone who's flown across skies and now navigates the frontier of Web3. Hesham is the co-founder of Elys, a next-gen layer 1 appchain, investment appchain actually, built on Cosmos. He is also an US Air Force Lieutenant Colonel, C-17 instructor pilot, and a strong advocate for financial accessibility throughout blockchain. This is BlockHunters Voices, the podcast with cool kids from the blockchain space. I'm Joachim Vuj, your host. Welcome, Hesham. How are you, my friend?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing very well.
It's great to have you here. And usually I really want to start from the beginning because I want to have this format more like a personal journey, hero journey, more than a technical note. Of course, you're going to cover technical aspects too, but I want you to walk us a little through your personal background from the Air Force to co-founding DeFi Layer 1.
All right, thank you for that opportunity. I'd love to be on with you guys. So my journey has been a little bit maybe different than the typical crypto founder, so to speak. I started off by going to the US Air Force Academy. I graduated there in 2002 with a degree in operations research. I became trained as a pilot. I actually started off flying the KC-10 tanker and then eventually transitioned to the C-17. I've been flying the C-17 now for about 20 years. I have 23 years in the Air Force, like you mentioned. I'm a lieutenant colonel. Along the way, I did earn an MBA from Arizona State University, WP Carey School of Business. And then I flew for 3 airlines. I currently also fly for a major U.S. airline as an Airbus 320 captain. So it's not the typical background that you would expect for a crypto founder. But my work experience and academic experience actually are very suitable to this type of environment. So I'm pretty excited to talk about that.
High stress.
Absolutely. My first exposure into the crypto space was in 2017. I had finally joined as a Bitcoin investor, and I was hooked ever since. I think one of the things that got me really excited too was the proof of stake concept that Cosmos had rolled out with the Internet of Blockchains. And I quickly became interested in the DeFi opportunities that were available because I loved the concept of cryptocurrency, what Bitcoin was trying to solve. But then I saw what digital assets in general would be solving in the software space. So this was really important for me to kind of get my hands on it and become a user. So I started off as a DeFi user about 5 years ago and quickly saw the advantages and opportunities. But more importantly, I saw the hurdles and the challenges that were kind of preventing it from getting really mainstream adoption, getting that velocity that it needed to get to that point of maturity. So I got together with our co-founders and we started to put ideas on paper and came up with the design for Elys Network. And we've been building Elys Network for the last 2.5 years now. Very excited. We just launched our mainnet, our TGE token generation event in mid-December of 2024. So we're only about 4 months old at the time of this recording. And I'm super excited about what's coming next.
For the folks out there that don't know, what exactly is a C-17 instructor pilot?
C-17 is a multi-role strategic and tactical airlift aircraft used by the U.S. Air Force. We have over 200 of them in the inventory. It is used for transporting troops or cargo, vehicles, can even carry various tanks. So it is air refueling capable, and it can basically land on just about every airstrip in the world. So it's pretty exciting what it's capable of doing. And it's been a workhorse for the Air Force ever since it was put into the inventory. Pushing about, I think the first one was in the 90s. I think early 90s is when they built the first one, maybe even late 80s. That was when the design was going through. I started flying it in 2005. 2005 was my intro into the C-17. As an instructor pilot, oh yes.
Please.
Oh, as an instructor pilot, my responsibilities now are to train the new C-17 pilots as well as existing 17 pilots who have various experience levels. I keep them current, so we go out and we do landings, we do air refueling, we do some of the tactical maneuvers that we do. Having 20 years in the C-17, it's pretty fun to watch, somebody new who's coming in and teaching them the things that I know. But as my career comes to a close, this will be one of the things that I think is going to be the things I look back on and really enjoyed the most and will miss the most from being on this airplane. It's just really amazing to be able to teach others.
Yeah, I love the crypto founders that have similar background like you. The co-founders of Drosera have a similar background. The CEO of Aleo also, and I like that because in crypto it's very easy to become from zero to hero in a second. So most of them don't have actually leadership. They don't have decision making. They don't have discipline. So I really like to see how people coming from such discipline, high stress jobs come and build into this space.
I appreciate that. And, everybody brings a certain skill set or talent to the space. So whether you're, 18 years old or 17 years old, I mean, we look at like Vitalik, what he brought to Ethereum, the experience is not always the end all be all. It's not always the thing that, needs to exist. It can be certain talents and skill sets that you possess like organically or just from other things that you've done in your life. So it's the combination of all those things and then having the right team around you. So one of the things that, I'm very proud of with Elys Network is we have an outstanding team. The fellow co-founders come from Credit Suisse and Mitsubishi Financial. So 20 years of TradFi experience. Another co-founder of ours comes from SpaceX and also Flow Blockchain. So very strong like project management, product skills. Really, I think, in my opinion, the best product and project guy that you'll find in all of crypto. And then we have Mitchell, who is our brick and mortar entrepreneur who's launched multiple successful restaurant chains and really just does an amazing job like managing our budget and keeping us lean and tight. And I think that combination of people coming together allows us to take the very best of all of our talents and put them together into something special. And so what I like to do is really lean on them for the areas where I don't have the expertise. And then they come to me for the areas where I have expertise. And I think that's what allows us to really have a really wonderful team. None of us will claim to be the experts on everything. And that's a really important thing at the founder level, is recognizing where your limitations exist and then being able to lean on the people who have those skills. So we check our egos at the door. We approach everything with humility. We even listen to everybody all the way down at the basic user level, even if they've just interacted with the Elys once. Their opinion matters to us. And that's really, really important for how we do business, because we are bottom up in how we take feedback and move forward with our roadmap, because we don't consider ourselves to be having more of a right to essentially make inputs on the Elys than somebody who is an everyday user or even a brand new user.
Before we dive into the world of Elys, how big is the team right now?
Our team is 14 people. So we have some temporary workers that will come in on a contract. We'll do maybe 3 to 6 months of work and then they'll leave. So our team generally moves between 13 and 15 people. I think we are probably going to expand our developer team, maybe 1 to 2 more people. So anyone who's a very skilled developer in the Cosmos ecosystem who wants to get in touch with us, please get in touch. We'll definitely review you. But yeah, that's typically where we like to keep the team at, between 13 and 15 people.
For those unfamiliar, what exactly is Elys in one sentence?
Elys Network is all things DeFi. So for us, we are essentially taking the very best things that you can get from, let's say, a centralized exchange experience, but giving you the decentralized experience to go with it. So you get the full self-custody, One of the things I think users tend to stay on centralized exchanges versus decentralized exchanges or DeFi platforms is the bridge to cross to go from those between those two can be very difficult. Somebody who creates a centralized exchange account likes the ease of being able to just simply log in, trade an asset, stake an asset, take a perpetual position, do all these different things that they can do, and then interact with any chain without having to have 10 wallets and seed phrase storage and all that stuff. Now, of course, the downside of that is the risk of centralized custody, right? So you have a custodial aspect of it where they're custodying your funds, and then you run the risk of if they were to be hacked or if they go bankrupt, as we've seen many times now in the crypto space, that leads to devastating effects for that user. So we want to bring all of those great things that from the user experience side, and then build upon that, but do it where the user has all the funds in their own wallet, and that's really important to us in how we move forward. That we want this to be a fully decentralized project for them.
From your point of view, what do you think is the biggest misconception people have about Elys, but DeFi in general?
I think for us, it's really maybe not necessarily a misconception. Maybe I think we're just not well known in this space yet, right? We're very small. We've only launched 4 months ago. And so it's a matter of having name recognition and just having a chance for people to get their hands on the Elys app. Because we're so new, and I think we haven't had enough people come and take a look at us. Although we're very happy with our growth and our user base right now. We have over 80,000 wallets have been created so far. On average, we're looking at almost 5,000 daily active users. So we're very, very happy with that initial user base. But in our situation right now, we would love for more and more people to just know about Elys so they can come take a look at it and provide feedback. From there, we could probably find out where the misconceptions exist, like what they would like to know more about with Elys, or what types of things they'd like to see. If I were to guess, I would say one of the things that they would probably say is that we're a competitor to another decentralized exchange within Cosmos or something like that. So I would clear up that misconception now by saying we actually don't compete with Osmosis or Injective or DYDX or Astroport or any of those really wonderful platforms. We actually consider them friends and partners. And the reason I say that is the way that we manage our platform and really benefit in terms of revenue generation is the cross flow of assets. So primarily arbitrage trading. So if we have arbitrage coming from Osmosis or back and forth from Elys to Osmosis or Elys to Astroport, etc., those are actually really great things for both platforms. So we like to think of ourselves as a helper to Osmosis and Astroport, and they help us. So we like to think of it as like we grow the pie together. As more users come in from outside ecosystems, we can actually both grow together. And our primary focus on user acquisition is to get users from centralized exchanges and Ethereum and other chains like blockchain, like Solana blockchain. And that way we can actually bring more users into Cosmos, which actually benefits our friends over at Osmosis and the other exchanges.
Yeah, and I think what you've told us earlier, that it's better to be friends than rather to compete. It actually aligns with the atom alignment, but we'll talk about this a little bit later.
Absolutely.
Because I know Elys V2 launched recently, and you described it like a new breed of investment apps. What makes it fundamentally different from, let's say, traditional DeFi platforms or other checks like CeFi, like Binance Margin, let's say, for example?
So what makes us different is that we don't specialize necessarily in one function. So like if you look at, let's say, a platform that may only specialize in perpetual trading, or one chain that may only really focus in liquid staking or other forms of staking, one might be just peer-to-peer lending, one might just be swaps, etc. We are actually an all-in-one platform, so we'll give you all of those things. It doesn't mean we have to build them ourselves. We'll actually integrate some of the partners, but we want to make sure that the user experience is such that they can stay in one place to be able to do it all. So we're happy to build these things with our partners. In fact, we talked with Stride about having actually some of their liquid staking functionality through like autopilot, for example, that would come in and be integrated directly on Elys. Obviously, because of our relationship with the Cosmos Hub and being very Atom aligned, we are building integrations directly for the Cosmos Hub as well. So we're very excited about those prospects. But what makes us different really is how we're designed. So our baseline for how we essentially our flywheel for all of the things that occur on Elys is our smart shielded liquidity pools. So if you are familiar with a typical decentralized exchange pool, they are an AMM design, automated market maker.
Exactly, the classic one.
Very classic, yeah. And even the new versions of that still operate kind of on the same concept, where it uses a balancer. So anytime somebody makes a swap into the liquidity pool, those pools actually rebalance automatically to 50-50. And when that happens, because there was an asymmetry there where somebody traded a pool in or out, traded a token in or out of that pool, the price has to rebalance as well. The price has to change relative of those two tokens to balance the pool back to 50-50. When that asset changes in price, that means it's actually not reflecting the true market price that's out there. So that's where arbitrage traders have to come in and essentially rebalance that pool back to the correct price. So they actually have to essentially take the other side of that trade, so to speak, unless the price has moved significantly or whatever. But they are trying to essentially bring that price back to market price. So the arbitrage trader is a really, really important part of how AMM pools work. Now, Elys smart shielded pool designs are not AMM pools. We do have an AMM pool, which on Elys, which is just our Elys USDC pool. But the rest of our pools are smart shielded pools, meaning that they use market pricing fed through a oracle. So the price feeder sends the price and liquidity depth into those pools. When that happens, when somebody makes a swap into or out of the liquidity pools for Elys, the prices of those assets remains tied to the market. So the actual there is no actual balancing that occurs automatically in the Elys pool. So you can watch a pool go from 50-50 to 55-45. It can go 60-40. And then we rely on the arbitrage trader to come in and instead balance the liquidity rather than change the price. And I think that's a really fundamental difference, because if you're a liquidity provider, you have a major risk in terms of impermanent loss from an AMM, because every time those arbitrage traders are making swaps in those pools, there's a little bit of erosion of the liquidity. When you're using a smart shielded pool, you mitigate that significantly because the prices are allowed to stay tied to the market and the balance of the pool is allowed to fluctuate. Now, how do we keep the balance going from way too out of balance, like 90-10, for example? We actually start to increase the price impact once it goes further and further away from 50%, so that the user is dissuaded from making that swap. They're persuaded to actually bring it back into balance because we give them a pool reward directly in USDC. It gets dropped into their wallet. So if I'm balancing the pool, if it's like 35-65 and I want to balance it back to 50-50, I'll actually see a reward of USDC get put in my wallet after I make that swap. And same thing with liquidity providers. So we benefit traders, we benefit liquidity providers, we benefit everybody who wants to participate in the platform by giving them all a chance to have this exposure to this flywheel. And then it allows for like more of a sustainable long-term liquidity pool participation.
So as a TLDR, you could say Elys is a one-stop shop for DeFi, where you aggregate perp decks, yield boards, prediction markets, everything under one UI. But the big differentiator are the smart shielded pools that are basically AMM pools on steroids.
I like that. Yeah, I mean, we're totally different than an AMM pool, but we are. So I would say that our liquidity pool design actually more closely replicates essentially how like a centralized exchange manages a trade, or how a brokerage would manage your trade if you are like purchasing some sort of assets via brokerage, or if you're purchasing crypto on like Coinbase or Binance, because they don't use pools, right? They essentially just are making the trade. Now they'll have order books depending on who you're buying from, if you're using like Pro Tools or whatever, and we're going to be rolling out an order book as well, which changes the game significantly. But In terms of how they purchase assets, they are not changing the price on you every time you make a swap where an arbitrage trader has to come in. So why should a DeFi platform do that, right? It's not the most efficient way to do things because of how it harms liquidity providers. So we want to give you the very best as a liquidity provider, the very best protection in terms of how you can benefit from the swap fees being generated coming back to you, which is the whole point of being a liquidity provider. While at the same time mitigating impermanent loss. So that would be, I would say, the biggest difference in our design and why it's working so well. In fact, if you watch in this past 4 months how well our liquidity pools have done, they've outperformed every DeFi, every DEX out there in terms of the pool health. So we have done an amazing job. Even with a smaller amount of pools, we can actually match other major centralized exchange liquidity because we actually feed that liquidity data in. So we give people the best pricing as well. So all of that, kind of put together serves as the foundation for how we will build our other products. Right now we have leverage LP, so you can borrow out of the USDC earn pool and take a leverage liquidity provision position up to 3x. We'll be rolling out expanded vaults next week. So we'll have an Atom earn pool. So we're going to call those vaults. So USDC, Atom, you'll see all the major tokens will have vaults, Bitcoin, Ethereum. And you could actually deposit your tokens into that vault, and then other people will be able to borrow from it to take on a leverage LP position. And then eventually, in a couple of weeks, we'll start to whitelist our perpetual trading. So we'll have an initial set of users doing perp trading on Bitcoin and Atom and probably Ethereum. I believe it's deep enough for us to do that now. We now have over 3.25 million in TVL, which is sufficient for us to start our perpetual trading, which we're very excited about. And the growth has been fantastic. The volumes have been fantastic. We have skip.go integration coming soon, which allows a user who uses the skip.go website to do their swaps to actually access Elys swaps, because right now we are not enabled on there. And that'll drive volumes up significantly for us, which will help liquidity providers as well.
Sounds great. That's a lot of work that you've put in there, and congrats on that. And I think a major milestone for the Cosmos ecosystem and also for Elys is going to be IBC Eureka. Is this going to be a critical unlock for Elys? Because you can actually bridge ecosystem from ecosystems like Ethereum, Solana, or Arbitrum.
This has been one of the greatest unblockers, so to speak, for Elys Network. When IBC Eureka went live just in the past week and a half or so, we saw a massive inflow of assets into Elys. So for us, we enabled wrapped Bitcoin from the Ethereum network, Ethereum coming in as wrapped ETH also, and then Paxos Gold, so PaxG. Those three assets, once we enabled those, in the first 3 to 4 days, we saw $1.1 million worth of assets come in. So it was a huge inflow for us. We are grateful to the Interchain Labs team and all the people working behind the scenes in Cosmos Hub to make this happen, because of what it does for expanding our user base. We have always, like I mentioned earlier, been targeting users who come from centralized exchanges and other chains. So now we actually get to realize that. And so it's exciting for us to see Ethereum users come in and bring their assets in. In fact, our largest pool right off the bat became Bitcoin. So Bitcoin from the Ethereum network, wrapped Bitcoin. And that is the indication to us that the appetite and the demand exists for this product to have the interaction between the Cosmos and Cosmos ecosystem and Ethereum and other major chains. So the next one that I believe is going to be rolling out will be Ripple XRP, which we're super excited about. We will be opening an XRP pool. So once we have that connection going on, that'll be done through our friends at Peer System, and it will be done in coordination with IBC Eureka. So all of these connections being built are the infrastructure that's necessary for us to build out this vision. So super excited about this. It's going to drive value to the Cosmos Hub. It's going to drive value to other chains within Cosmos. Once they're in Elys, they can go in IBC elsewhere. They can go to Osmosis. They can go to Neutron. They can go to Stride. They can go anywhere they want. So we're an access point now for the Cosmos ecosystem, which we're super excited about, thanks to IBC Eureka.
Yeah, I actually wondered what were the actual results of IBC Eureka, because on Twitter, you see you have a lot of reach, everything looks good, but I didn't hear anything from a builder until you told me that it actually has results, and that's something that was the from the start on Cosmos, right? From the white paper, Internet of Blockchains, right?
Absolutely. It's beautiful to see how we've come back to the original mission of the Cosmos Hub. Like you mentioned, Internet of Blockchains, it's the reason why I got excited about it. It is the best scaling solution, in my opinion, in crypto. It took a long time, for example, for Ethereum users to understand that. Ethereum really just kind of tried to take a band-aid approach with all these layer twos, Polygon, Arbitrum, zk-Sync, right? And they are now coming to the realization that maybe that wasn't the right answer. Maybe it wasn't the right answer to build a bunch of layer twos. The right answer was to probably interconnect with a lot of other chains in general, rather than try to just keep forking itself over and over and over again. And so this is where I get excited to see like a chain that's well established like Ethereum wanting to be more like Cosmos. That's the show. That's the nod, right? That's the show of faith that they believe in the tech. And so many amazing chains are built off of Cosmos SDK. So we already know the tech stack is really absolutely fantastic. And everybody who continues to upgrade it and add functionality to it, they're real heroes in the space because they essentially offer that service for free, right? So any chain can just simply grab a copy of Cosmos SDK and start building. So this is really important for us in that, like, it's a great way to bring users in. And so now it's on us as founders, on us as team members to actually monetize that. We have to turn that into revenue generation. And it's not a fault of the Cosmos Hub. It's not a fault of anybody who is offering Cosmos SDK for free. I've heard this many times where they say, oh, we should just license Cosmos SDK, and that's how we should generate revenue. And, you know, that's one way to look at it. I just prefer we just build things that people want and they'll pay for the product and service. And I think that's an easier solution, right? And I'm always a fan of taking the path of least resistance in terms of how people want to interact with the blockchain. And the reason they'll want to interact with the blockchain is they'll have a product or service that they'll actually enjoy and want to use. And I think we're getting there, right? We have a lot of really great things in the Cosmos ecosystem, and we were always battling the issue of how do you bring them into Cosmos if there's no way for them to get here. So IBC Eureka has done that. And now we have, you know, a lot of great ways for people to get exposure to this ecosystem. And our unification effort and the collaboration that we have across all these chains in Cosmos now drives more positive sentiment. So the days of the very open infighting that was going on within Cosmos and disagreements about we all remember those days. It was very difficult to watch, right? And it's not an indictment on anybody who was participating in that or had strong feelings about it, but instead it's more of a, hey, that was a way that and a time in our history where people were being driven away from the ecosystem. Now we're bringing people into the ecosystem through positive sentiment, through building things that they want to use, through the ease of access, and taking down all the different barriers that existed. So the reason I bring that up is it's working, number one, and number two, it just goes to show you that collaboration is such a more effective tool than intense competition or disagreements. And when I look back at some of those things, I'll just add one more thing to that. When I look back at some of those disagreements, they were really on the margins. They were really like minimal things. You know?
And what I wanted to say was, Cosmos really had a image problem because everybody was using the Cosmos stack, but nobody wanted to identify itself like a Cosmos chain. So I know Celestia launch, we are a modular. Story launched, we are IP narrative. Chain launch, no, we hate Cosmos. So everybody, because Cosmos had built up this really, really bad image, but right now I think things are starting to change because Magma and Barry are very good at actually bringing value to the ecosystem. And one of the two things that I think that are important here is the atom alignment. And I know Elys is one of the first projects that is atom alignment. The second is IBC Eureka that we talked earlier. And I actually want to know, what does atom alignment mean to you, and what is the long-term relationship in the roadmap with Elys?
That's a great milestone that you brought up in terms of the ICL transition to have Mag and Barry taking over as co-CEO. And what I've noticed from ICL is a lot more unification effort, and I think that's really important. I would say that the previous ICL team did a very good job with the tools that they had and what they were trying to achieve. But where we were having difficulty was balancing the vision of being very decentralized. And I think Cosmos did that very early on. They wanted to be decentralized from the very beginning. But with that comes the added challenge of a lot of different voices trying to come together and come up with some sort of consensus. So it's not that the quote unquote infighting or disagreements that were occurring were something that could have been necessarily avoided. It's that we had the right intentions in mind as a community to decentralize. When you do that, it creates a little bit of chaos, right? And that's okay, right? That's okay. It's a learning opportunity for everybody to try to figure it out and find their way. And we've done that. So with that said, what does atom alignment really mean? It means what we as a consensus, as a community, actually decide. So I know that Mag has presented a vision that atom alignment can really be something custom. It doesn't have to be, oh, you have to share revenue with us, or you have to build on Cosmos Hub, or you have to use IBC Eureka. It doesn't have to be any of those things. But what it should be is a discussion amongst your chain or your community, your project, your dApp on where do we see ourselves fitting in as a value accrual, tool or value accrual project for the Cosmos Hub, and how can we have a mutual relationship from the Cosmos Hub where we get some sort of value that comes back to us from this relationship. So it's very, very, in my opinion, kind of similar to like business agreements that occur every day in wherever you live. And I think that that's a really important thing to think about, how this is the next frontier in terms of monetizing users, creating sustainable revenue that actually drives real value to the entire ecosystem. So atom alignment can be anything you want. I'll give you the example of how Elys does atom alignment. So from the very beginning, we knew that we wanted to have a very close relationship with the Cosmos Hub. That was built into our vision from the very beginning. And initially, we saw the opportunity to become a partial set security chain, and that's what we did. So the first iteration of ICS was Stride and Neutron, and that got essentially a lot of feedback from validators saying, well, why does the chain need to have the full economic security of the entire 180 active validator set? Why don't we have an option where we can do something smaller? And I think
it was very hard to manage everything, and the worst part was if you're gonna get jailed on Neutron, for example, or something, you're gonna get jailed on Atom, and
exactly.
you didn't get any kind of revenue from supporting those chains. So the vision was good, but it was flawed in execution.
And that's why ICS is being sunset, and I agreed with Mag's decision on that to actually just remove that functionality. Now with partial set security, you can run a chain with as few validators as you want, and that's really great because now you can right size your chain's economic security needs based on the size of your chain. And then as you grow, you can always expand your validator set if there's interest to do so.
Exactly.
So Elys Network has up to 40 active validators, which is perfect for our growth. Like we'll be able to grow into that valuation, for quite a while. So that's good. And then so one of the ways that we return value to those stakeholders, to the Atom validators who are providing that economic security, is we return 15% of protocol retained revenue back to those validators and stakers. So if you're staking Atom with a validator who is providing economic security for Elys, you are partaking in the actual revenue generation of Elys. So that we're pretty excited about that, the prospects there. And then we're adding bonuses for like our Eden and Elys reward tokens that are used as bootstrapping mechanisms right now. We're adding another bonus to those validators for sticking around with us for 1 year. So there'll be a lot of great, opportunities on that side. On the other side of that, for Atom, providing, Atom alignment, we take another 15% of protocol retained revenue and we purchase Atom into our treasury. So that's 30% of protocol retained revenue is already driven to Atom alignment. So we're very, very excited about that. Obviously, on other practical purposes, the volumes that come through IBC Eureka, that's another revenue generator for the Cosmos Hub, so that they keep all of the revenues from that. So we actually don't take anything from there. And so there's a lot of different ways that we help Atom essentially have, retain, and grow value. And in the same way, we also are enabled to grow our platform as well. So this is to me a perfect relationship in terms of how we can both scale. And then I hope other chains, regardless of how they build their relationships with the Cosmos Hub, just explore those opportunities, have the conversation, sit down at the table with Mag and Barry, and decide what's right for you. If partial set security is not right for you, that's okay. Being a sovereign chain is totally okay. There's nothing wrong with that. So there's other ways for you to find Atom alignment. Revenue sharing is just one idea. There could be so many other things. Co-marketing. It could be staking rewards. It could be so many different things that you could find some middle ground. Obviously, the one that I think Mag has now kind of put on the roadmap is dApp development. So if you are building dApps directly on the Cosmos Hub, you're Atom aligned. So this is pretty cool, and that's going to be coming out kind of in the next quarter. I think they'll be aggressively pursuing this strategy, which I think will actually work very, very well for the Cosmos Hub.
Right now, I feel like Cosmos has all the infrastructure needed or is heading in that way, but we really depend on the market conditions and macro. And I wanted to pick your brain and to see where do you feel you are in the current crypto market cycle right now, because we can have all the infrastructure, all the bridges, all the cross-chain, all the interoperability, but if people don't bring in liquidity, infrastructure is not enough.
That's a very good point, that we are liquidity constrained right now. The macro backdrop is very challenging. We do have most of the tools that we need. We are still a little bit to go in terms of infrastructure build out, right? IBC Eureka still needs to connect to all these other chains. We do have to have essentially the plumbing, the infrastructure needing to be built out for all of the interoperability that we need. That's coming. Even if it takes another 1 to 2 years, that's okay. There's no real rush to make it happen right now. But the beauty of this is when you're building these things during, let's say, the bear market of 2022, 2023, if you were building during that time, you had the luxury or the benefit of not having the distraction of a very fired up market where people were trying to ship
Like
fast. Yeah, and they were jumping around from place to place, and everybody was jumping to a new narrative and this and that. And it was a distraction for a lot of developers. It was a distraction for fundraising and teams, and people were just trying to put their head down and create something that people want to use. So this is actually better. In my opinion, if you're developing, this is a great time to be developing, because you can just build for the long term rather than something that's just right in front of you next week. So that's a really important kind of concept. Where it does challenge a lot of these teams is fundraising, right? You have to have the funds to pay your teams and develop all these projects, because it's really hard to get something organic like Bitcoin and Ethereum to happen today. And then I will say, like, the challenges that we see where we get a lot of these fits and starts, where sometimes we feel like, okay, Bitcoin is breaking out, Ethereum's going to break out, and then they come down hard. We had that run in December, and then it gave it all back, and now we're hitting lows again. Ethereum broke below its 2020, I think 2019 numbers now, I think, or it got close to its 2019 numbers. And that's okay. We will always have these, ups and downs, these retracements. A lot of these market volatility events are not driven by crypto itself, right? This is driven by other conditions, and we saw this one driven by the macro environment, whether it be geopolitical tensions, whether it be some back and forth discussion about like how monetary policy is gonna go. For example, in the U.S. with all these austerity measures, cutting government spending, and then we're still constrained by relatively high interest rates, right? So historic to the last 5 to 10 years. So all of those different conditions make somebody who wants to deploy liquidity kind of hold back and wait. And they're just thinking, okay, when is the all clear signal for me to deploy? So generally for us in the crypto markets, that all clear signal tends to come from the stock market, right? Typically when you see equities markets do well, people have a little bit more money to play with, or they feel they have a wealth effect, and then they start deploying into crypto markets. So we understand that relationship has existed for a while now. At some point, we do want it to decouple, right? We don't want to always be at the mercy of what's going on in the equities markets, but that will require the crypto market to be monetized and generating revenue. Once we have that where you can actually fundamentally analyze what's going on in the crypto market separately from the equities markets, you will see that decoupling happen. That will happen, right? Whether it's 5, 10, 15 years from now, I don't know the answer to that. It really depends on when we actually are generating larger sums of revenue across the industry. So that day is coming, and be on the lookout for that. If I were to take, I can't tell you whether the market rebound in equities and whether monetary conditions will change or interest rates will finally come down. I can't tell you if that's going to happen in June. I can't tell you if it's going to happen in the fourth quarter. But what I can tell you is those are the signs that you should be looking for to see when the crypto market will finally start to get a benefit on the tail end of like equities markets rebounding. So a lot of discussion about it right now. Was the bottom in? Did we already hit the worst in the stock market? Are we on the final upswing? Nobody can tell you that answer because it's so dependent on things that have not happened yet, right? So if you think about, like, we don't know when interest rates will be cut. We don't know what the next phase of like tariff tensions are going to be. We don't know what the next shoe to drop with an unexpected.
Yeah, but people love speculation.
They do.
So
they do.
yeah.
So
and the stock market was up only. It needed to have a back of retracement, right?
Absolutely. And I believe in reversions to the mean. I believe you can revert, actually fall through that mean and then overcorrect and then come back to the mean. So this is probably what's happening right now. We're falling through because if you look at the crypto market cap, that was the previous high in 2021. It was just under 3 trillion, or if you want to call it 3 trillion. We actually broke above that in this last rally.
But we have too many coins. That's the issue. Too many coins, too many launches, too many memes. Same, almost all the same money in the market, but more diversified shit coins where we can gamble.
Absolutely, it was a big liquidity event for us to watch that get just that devastation. It was very destructive, which explains why we actually fell back through 3 trillion, which should have been a good support level for us. We actually went all the way back down to about 2.5, 2.6 trillion. I think we're sitting at about 2.7, 2.8 trillion. So what I do know, just kind of based off of like historical, behavior and how markets work, is that you can expect when the crypto market cap comes back up to about 3 trillion, that's a heavy resistance, right? So you're going to see a lot of battle being done at that level, and that's okay. That's what's supposed to happen. You're supposed to see a lot of confusion there. You're supposed to see a lot of speculation, a lot of people betting up and down. So you expect to have a battle there, and that's okay. Just like every time when Bitcoin hits a key level of support or resistance, you always have a battle there, and it moves around. And sometimes you get a false breakout, and sometimes it goes way below. And those are the things that we have to accept. It's a beautiful thing, and you have to accept as a long-term investor that those things will happen, and they'll frustrate people, and they'll cause people to leave the markets or try to time the market, which is one of the ways that people can really lose out on a lot of opportunity. So if I were to offer, I don't offer financial advice, but I'd offer like sentiment advice or maybe some sort of like, just
resilience advice.
Resilience advice. Be resilient, right? Is to tune out some of the short-term noise and think about what the long-term means to you. If you truly are a long-term investor in this space, you want to always be evaluating your thesis and think about which things are actually generating revenue, which things drive value. Bitcoin excluded, because Bitcoin doesn't really by itself drive enough revenue to justify its valuation. It's more of the scarcity asset, the gold type thing, that is a different animal. But everything else that has a software focus, that there's development being built on there to generate applications or, to create applications that are supposed to generate revenue or create some sort of use case, those are the things you can evaluate over time and decide if they actually have a real user base, if they have real revenues. And it allows you to just formulate your opinion and decide whether you want to be there for the long term, whether the market's up or down, right? And that's kind of where we live at Elys Network. Is we want to drive value. We want to drive revenue generation. We want participants on this network to be focused on that long-term sustainable mindset. And we want to build it in a responsible way so that you can provide liquidity, you can stake here, you can perpetual trade here, you can do all the different functions you want. You can participate in vaults and not feel like you're going to wake up the next morning and it's gone. That's why we use USDC as our base token rather than Elys as a token, right? All of our pools are paired with USDC because we don't want to subject you to even more volatility than we already have in the crypto market. So we actually, if you've noticed the way that our TVL operates, or our TVL has moved at Elys Network over the last 4 months. While just about every DEX out there has their TVL has gone down, our TVL has gone up. And the reason is we have our mostly USDC on our platform. So again, food for thought. Those are the types of things I want people to think about. I can't tell you specifically what you should or shouldn't be in. You manage your risk appropriately, talk to your financial advisor, whatever it is that you need to do in terms of your personal research and what's right and suitable for you. But in this market, time can be your friend or it can be your enemy. I prefer to make time my friend. So like I said before, I use the time as an opportunity when the markets are down to put my head down and build, right? To be able to create these products, get them really fine-tuned, get them ready to go, so that when there is a market upswing, I don't have to chase it. I'm already ready with my product. So that's how I use time to my advantage. Time can be your enemy if you start leverage trading, or if you start taking on very dangerous positions where you can be liquidated and you can be taken out very quickly, and you're not there to live to fight another day when the market's up. So use time to your advantage. Time is one of the things we as a human species, as human race.
It's our most valuable resource.
Most valuable resource. And it's the one we understand the least. We understand time the least of anything out there. We literally know more about space than we do time. And I think that's really important to kind of bring into your psyche, because everything in your life is a function of time. Your health, your sleep, your investing, your family, it's all a function of time. And if you can make the best of your understanding and have a respect for the element of time, everything else in your life falls into place. And investing and being a crypto user and being an early adopter of crypto, you should absolutely be thinking of it as a time function as well.
Yeah, that's a lot to digest, Hesham. But
we got into philosophy a little bit right there, didn't we?
Yeah, but I want to know on a personal note, what kind of daily or weekly habits keep you grounded while building in such high pressure environments? Do you have like any mental frameworks from the military? Because everything that we talked earlier, in theory, sounds wonderful, but as you know, the execution is the problem.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I know the answer is different for everybody. I will say that what the military taught me very early on is they put a lot of stress on your plate. They overload you on purpose. So whether it's the early days of going to boot camp, or whether it's all the different challenges they throw at you, they purposely put a lot on your plate to make you feel stressed. The reason they do that is not to break you. They're not trying to break you. They're actually trying to show you how strong you are, right? And the human being is incredibly resilient, incredibly strong, at all levels. We could do so much more than we actually believe. And it's been proven time and time again, when you're put under some sort of stress, you actually end up outperforming what you thought you would have done. The only thing is you just needed to be challenged, or you just needed to be shown that at some point in your life to know that you could do it. And a lot of times I think we don't put ourselves in those situations, or don't get put in those situations, because one, they're uncomfortable, they're very difficult to set up. The environment, it has to be just so, and they typically can have very unsafe outcomes if you're trying to do it yourself, or if something catastrophic happens, like a car accident, etc. Right? Those are the things you don't want to purposely put yourself in. But if you're put in a controlled stress environment where you can keep placing more and more stress on yourself, you'll be amazed at the type of things you can accomplish under stress. And then when you come out of it on the other side, you should give yourself an opportunity to de-stress and kind of recover and take personal time and learn from that experience and build on it and say, wow, this is what my body's capable of. So
yeah,
in the same way,
I remember reading that in David Goggins' book.
Yeah, and he's an absolute beast, right? Amazing what he's put himself through. And so obviously what the Navy SEALs did, they take that to a whole nother level than what I experienced. And I will say that the journey is yours. You get to decide where you want to push yourself to, but allow yourself to discover what your personal limits are and what you can manage, because it's not one of these things where you can get put in a situation and say, okay, that's my limit and that's my permanent limit for the rest of my life. You can continue to raise that limit over time if you practice, right? It's the same thing as working out, running, lifting weights, nutrition, anything else that you do. You can always train yourself to become more resilient. So I would say that the best thing that the military ever did for me was to give me the confidence and give me the ability to evaluate my own resilience and evaluate where I am, and then allow me to push it a little bit further. And it's not an overnight process. This is 23 years, right? And it'll continue to be that way. I continue want to make this happen over time, where I can become more and more resilient. So it is a behavior, or not a behavior, it's a characteristic that you can improve over time if you choose to do so. And then recognize when you are at a limit to take some stuff off your plate and say, okay, I am at my known limit. I know the situation. I know what it feels like. It's time for me to start taking things off my plate. It's okay to say no. So I would say that, like, for me, as my kind of way to keep myself balanced, is I'm not afraid to tell people, okay, I'm at my point where, like, I just need to maybe push this off till next week, or table it, or whatever. But the goal here is to, if you are not able to take care of yourself and make sure you're in a position to stay resilient, then you are no longer
going to crash out.
Crash out is one of them, but more importantly, I think, in my opinion, is if you're like community focused, or have a lot of people in your life, like family and friends, that you want to take care of, you no longer become an asset to them. You no longer become able to take care of your friends and family. So think of it as more of like, when the oxygen mask drops from the airplane, they always say, put your mask on before you help somebody else. Exactly. There's a reason for that.
Because if you die first, you can't help your family.
And now somebody has to help you, right? So you, by putting your mask on, can now help many other people. So make yourself resilient, take care of yourself so that you can help others. And I promise you, they'll return the favor for you if you find yourself at a point where you are unable to take care of yourself. And that's how we work, right? Humans are, by thousands of years of history, pack, community focused. We like to be around other people, whether we think so or not, right? Based on what we see on social media, we actually like to be around each other. So I encourage people to just kind of keep that in mind, find the routine that works for you, whether it be nutrition, sleep, exercise, social events. Find the ones that are right for you. I like the combination of all those things. I prioritize sleep a lot. I mean, sleep is one of those things that I think allows me to have better nutrition, better hydration, better family relations, better friend relations.
Bad sleep fucks up everything.
It messes everything else up. Yeah, it's foundational. Yeah. Foundational. So yeah. So I know that was kind of a long one, but this one, I love to talk about things like this, right? I like to get on the philosophical side of things. I love to really find out like what makes people tick, and I'd love to know more about like what our community members think too. Like if they have some recommendations or some things that work well for them, I also want to hear about it too. I think it would be great to hear from really everyone on that.
But besides your own experience, do you have like any books or thinkers or movies, podcasts that have deeply influenced your philosophy on leadership, on resilience, on everything that you told me right now? Do you have somebody that you watch, that you admire? For me, I resonate with what you've told me with like David Goggins. I read it. It kind of changed my life. I started doing sport. I didn't do sport most of my life. I was a lazy ass. So for me, that was something that influenced my life. So I'm curious if you have some recommendation for people that can change your life in a better way.
Yeah, well, I was going to start off with saying the Bitcoin Standard, but that's really just a book about Bitcoin. No, but in terms of like people who I have tremendous respect for, they're everywhere. And actually, in my life, it's really been family members that I think have been just absolutely instrumental in how I conduct myself as a person, how like I set my moral compass, and what I view to be like, the threshold for like things like integrity, and trying to do the right thing all the time. What that means is doing the right thing when nobody's looking. I think military service has a lot to do with that. So I look up at like some of the famous like generals that we've had in the Air Force and the Army, like Colin Powell, for example. Like some of those guys have just been absolutely incredible in terms of setting a standard, setting a tone for how they live their life, how they conduct themselves. I would say whatever book it is or whatever podcast or video you want to watch based on somebody who you think is an outstanding mentor or leader, embrace them and find out what those qualities are that you like and why you want to emulate them. I would say for me, the biggest thing that I see from somebody that I respect the most is going to be humility. So somebody who has done really, really amazing things in their life, but doesn't have an ego. And I think we know a lot right now in the news about certain people who like to have big egos, and go out there and push their ego and push their entire feelings on somebody else. And it gets to be a little much. Even if you support them, you look at them and you go, well, there's an ulterior motive here, or I don't really fully trust this person, or I don't understand why this person acts the way that they do. But you'll generally see somebody who's very, very well respected, who's very humble, is somebody you can connect with on a human level, but at the same time also want to actually be like that person, want to actually say, hey, I want to be somebody who does right by the world and does great things and helps people in this world, but at the same time does not approach it with an arrogance or some sort of I'm always right manner. And that the thing that I've learned from these leaders the most is when they're wrong or when they don't know the answers, they
say they're wrong.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. And for me especially, I like to be the dumbest person in the room.
I like that. I like that philosophy, right? Because you can always learn something from somebody else around you. You can always learn something. So I gravitate towards people like that. I gravitate towards people who try to at least approach it from that human element of wanting to always learn and always interact in such a mutually respectful manner with other people. It's one of the reasons why I've kind of really enjoyed this experience in the Cosmos ecosystem, because there's so many people who share these same values in terms of this unification, collaboration, being humble, leaning on others for their expertise and experience. And that's how we build a fully functioning economy and a really great environment for people to do their best and grow the space and continue to really just innovate. And as long as we stay true to those ideals, we can really do some really incredible things.
Looking ahead, what does success look like for Elys and the Cosmos ecosystem in the next couple of years?
In the next couple of years, I think it's going to be a real focus on building the things that people actually want to put their hands on, want to be users of, whether it's every day, every week, every month, it doesn't really matter, as long as they are actually participating. When I think about what success looked like for Apple, right? Apple, when they built the Macintosh computer in the, 30 years ago, 35 years, it's been a long time, right? When they built that computer, that was not their success. Their success was not that. Their original versions of their operating systems were not their success. You could even argue that their iPhone was not their success, right? Because that's just hardware that anybody could replicate. Their success was that they got a user that actually goes onto their app store and downloads apps and uses those apps every day. That's their success. That is truly what Apple's success is that they built a user who they've retained. So user retention is going to be the key metric for the Cosmos ecosystem. But of course, we have to measure user acquisition first before we get there. So
and a cult-like following they have.
Yes, and we have a cult-like following. We do. We have a cult-like following in Cosmos. We just have to expand it. And so in our situation is if we want this following, we have to build them something they want to use. And that's where I think the measure over the next 2 years for us, for our success, will be, have we actually succeeded on that vision of creating these products, services or products that we can monetize, that users will actually enjoy using and then tell their friends about. And that's how you build the cult, right? So that 2 years is a long time to be able to measure that. So it's good for us. It's a small amount of time in terms of the actual growth opportunity of this industry, but it'll allow us to really fundamentally measure if we're on the right track.
Sounds good. And I'm really looking forward to see everything that's going to happen in the Cosmos ecosystem. This chapter is just in the beginning, so a lot of new cool things are going to happen very soon. And right now we are entering the last chapter of the podcast, and we want to wrap things up with some rapid fire questions to get a sense of where your head's at when it comes to crypto. But for this one, just quick top of the mind answers very fast. Favorite crypto project outside of Cosmos?
I like Unchain actually.
Okay, most underrated and overrated trends in crypto right now?
Underrated, I would say RWAs. That's a multi-trillion-dollar opportunity because everything will be tokenized, right? So you'll have a lot of expansion that has not even been factored into with what's coming into the space. So I think that's going to be pretty big. As far as overrated trends, I think we finally got over the meme coin thing and metaverse back in the day. So right now that it's probably good to report that I think those have been taken care of. Outside of that, I think we're probably okay in terms of overrated right now, given our current macro conditions.
What are the top 3 crypto apps you personally use every day?
I use Elys Network every day, so that's definitely number one. I do use Stargaze. I actually really love Stargaze app. If you guys have heard me talk about it before, if I could raise the funds to purchase Stargaze and merge it into Elys, I would do it in a heartbeat. Or if Cosmos Hub would merge with Stargaze or buy them, I think that would be pretty incredible. And then I use Uniswap as the third one because I bring assets over on IBC Eureka to Elys. So actually, my use of Uniswap has actually been reborn. I wasn't using it for a long time up until IBC
It's an
Eureka.
Extension right now.
Yeah, I use it specifically to bring assets onto Elys. So that's a new one for me. So, but I'm excited about all the other ones that that are up and coming. So I actually just started playing. I don't know if this one counts, but I started playing with Cosmic Quest from Crypto Dungeon, their game, because I have early user access because I have the NFT, and that's been pretty fun. It's a really cool game. So mostly I'm just looking for something that I could give to my kids to play without the concern of clicking on some sort of advertisement or some sort of thing that they could take them astray. So that this might be the game that I actually give to my kids to play because it seems like right up my alley in terms of it's a safe game for them to play, as well as the price is going to be very reasonable from what I understand for the team to be able to purchase it. So.
And one piece of advice you'd give to new builders entering the space?
One piece is hard because I got a lot, but let's go with always listen to your community. Be a user first. So if you are somebody who ends up, obviously becoming preoccupied with meetings, fundraising, development, and everything else that's going on, all at the same time, sometimes it becomes very difficult to stay grounded with your community and stay close to them. So really, really focus on being a user first. Always ask from the user side, what do you need? How can I make this better for you? Because I think the mistake that we've made in the past as a community is developers were building things kind of in a silo, or they were building things at their technical level that did not translate into a good user experience or user interface. And we're missing that component, that linkage, and that can be better connected if we stay grounded with those users. And then it'll also allow you to build the products that they want versus the products you think they want.
Exactly. And before we wrap this up, where can the community follow Elys and stay updated?
We have lots of different socials. We have our X, which is probably the one that you'll be most familiar with or most active on. It's going to be Elys_network on X. You can join our Telegram group, which is Elys Network. And then you can also join our Discord, which is Elys Network, all one word. I am accessible on all of those platforms. You could also message me on X directly at my X. And I will try to my best to respond to you within 24 hours. If you do DM me on places like X, just bear in mind that sometimes those go to a spam folder and I may never see them. So maybe Telegram might be the easiest way to do that. My Telegram is HHA1001 if you want to do that. Otherwise, you can also find me on Discord. So happy to interact with anybody and everyone. I am always going to make time for anybody who has a question or anybody has a concern, anybody has a suggestion. And then if you use our app.elys.network, you can log in pretty easily, connect your wallet, or use a social account. And then there's also a contact link at the bottom of that app that you can contact the team directly with any of your suggestions, bugs, etc.
That's the real founders marketing right now. Founders really connecting with the community, not staying behind the almighty tower.
I will say, I started off as a DeFi user, and I because I could not find the app that worked for me as a user, and thousands of others, thousands of others who said the same thing. That's why I started on this mission. I never thought I would actually be a founder. I never thought I would actually be operating, or running creating a blockchain. I thought I would always just be a community member. And so I always still consider myself a user and community member first, and I want to stay that way. I always want to be a user of Elys to make sure that I'm doing it correctly, and I want to make sure that I'm getting the information directly from users to be able to make it better, rather than try to make it better on my own, or try to read their mind on what they think they want. Right? I would rather just hear directly from community members on what it is they want to see.
Okay, thank you for this, man. I really learned a lot. So thanks for hopping in. It's always nice to hear from people with vast experience like yourself, including the military, DeFi experience, crypto experience, and I'll talk with you soon.
Yeah, thank you so much to you and the entire BlockHunters team for everything you do for the community. I love your community focus. I love the fact that you are here to provide education and really keep people up to date on like the latest news and everything. So without teams like you, honestly, we wouldn't be able to grow this space. So thank you for everything you do for us as well.
Thanks, man. Have a great one.
Cheers.